Hi everyone, Kelly here, and today I want to talk about the books that I read for middle grade March, which is a readathon that ran in March where we read middle grade books. And yeah, I took too long to do this wrap up, so this could end up being short because I might not remember as much as I would like. I did do another March wrap up where I talked about all the adult, young adult, graphic novels that I read in March, so this is just what I read for middle grade March. My middle grade March this year was very hit or miss. I had several 3-star, I had several 5 stars, and I had a couple DNFs. So I'm going to start with my DNFs and then go my 3 stars on up. Luckily I had no 1 or 2 stars, but just a few disappointments, I guess, and then some really good ones. So let's first talk about the ones I DNF'd. So the very first middle grade book that I picked up in March was Percy Jackson's Greek Heroes by Rick Riordan. And this is where Percy Jackson, the character, is narrating different Greek myths about the heroes, and I only made it through the first story, and this just did not work for me. It was just kind of obnoxious teenage boy humor or tween boy humor, and it was just very annoying for me to read. I think this would be great for kids that age, if they really like the myths and they want something a little more humorous than like straightforward retelling. My daughter and I have read a ton of retellings of Greek myths, several of them targeted towards young audiences, and so like I think maybe I was overly saturated and this was not hitting me right, where some of those other ones were better versions of like a young version of the Greek myths. So yeah, this one I was not going to make it through the whole thing. Like I said, I would recommend it for a teen. I'll pass it on to somebody that's younger or like a middle schooler, but not for me. And then I also DNF'd Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats by T.S. Eliot. And I picked this up, it's a collection of poems. I picked this up because my daughters have gotten really into listening to the musical Cats. I grew up listening to Cats, and I never read the poems. So I thought, well, I'll try the poems. But the reason I DNF'd this is that I guess Andrew Lloyd Webber like took the poems exactly and made them into songs. So it wasn't like this inspired Cats, like Cats is this. So I just found like I wasn't getting anything out of it because as I was reading, all I was doing was singing the song because it has the exact same words basically. There's a couple times where he changes the words, but for the most part, even when he repeats words in the song and you're like, oh, that must be part of like the musical fun. No, it's like repeated in the poem too. So it was exact. I made it like halfway, well, not even halfway, maybe a third of the way through, and I was like, I'm not getting anything out of this. I'll just go listen to Cats with my kids. Now on to my 3-star books. None of these were bad books. All of them I would recommend to other people that like this type of book, but none of them really worked for me. Some of them were a couple disappointments, but yeah, they were just fine. So first I have Dear Mr. Henshaw by Beverly Cleary. Beverly Cleary's books have never worked for me. I've DNF'd a few. I've given most of them that I've finished 3 stars, and this was the same. I thought this one, because it was a standalone and I've heard really great things about it, it won the Newbery, right? Yeah, it won the Newbery. So I thought maybe this is the one that I'm going to really enjoy. I thought it was just fine. It's about this boy who writes letters to an author he really enjoys, and it's all epistolary. It was all right. I just didn't find anything exciting or interesting about this one. It was just eh. And then I have A Rover Story by Jasmine Warga. This was our group read for middle grade March, and I also won a giveaway, so I got this pretty copy of it. And this is one where I'm going to keep this book and I'm going to encourage my kids to read it, especially if we end up like homeschooling, learning about space. This one I will definitely read with my kids for that. But like for me personally, as my like enjoyment, I was like, it was fine. And I liked some parts about it. This is all like from a perspective of a Mars rover. We see the Mars rover getting built, you know, going up into space, their time on Mars and all that. So I think for education wise and for like a kid learning about space, this would be a really interesting way to learn about space and have like, there's also like themes of friendship and resilience and all kinds of stuff that is good in here for kids to read. I just as an adult didn't love it, but I didn't think it was bad or anything wrong with it. It was just not my type of middle grade book as an adult to read, but definitely one I'll keep for my kids. And then my last 3-star was Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston, and this was just a disappointment because I have read Amari and the Night Brothers twice and gave it 5 stars both times, loved it, and this one just felt like a really big slump, like a sophomore slump. Like I still love the character of Amari, but this one took so long for the plot to really get started. I don't want to give any details since it's a sequel and a lot of stuff happens at the end of the first one. And I just felt like we had this big things that happened at the end of the first one. This really started off super slow. I thought the friendships weren't as dynamic as in the first one. The world was a little more static too, I think because so much was introduced in the first one that it like didn't have as much world building to introduce, so it kind of fell flat a little bit. And I was waiting for this game to start, and the game just takes so long to get there, and then it doesn't really focus on the game, the great game in this. And I did end up picking up at the very end. I would say the last third picked up. There was some good like reveals and all that, but this is not one that I would want to like reread, which will be unfortunate because when the third one, will I remember some of this? I might have to flip through like the end when the third one comes out, but this was just a little disappointment. Like I said, I'll still continue the series, still love Amari, but this one will definitely, I think, end up being like that like slow middle one. You know how in trilogies, a lot of times the middle one kind of slumps down. That's what this will be for me if this ends up being a trilogy. Now moving on to my 4 stars, I have Paola Santiago and the Forest of Nightmares by Taylor K. Mejia. And this is a sequel to Paola Santiago and the River of Dreams. Is that what the first one is called? And I really enjoyed the first one. There's like a trio of friends and their like friendship dynamic was great. Like it felt very tween with the like issues that come in a friendship group, especially when it's like, you know, 2 girls and a boy or whatever, like some of the like things that could happen in a trio made up of those components, and they'd go on an adventure, and there was like really cool like Mexican folklore and all that. I still really enjoyed this. This like reminded me why I love the first one. The like friendship dynamic is a bit weird because our 3 like characters that are best friends aren't really together for most of this book, and they're doing like different things, and sometimes they're together, and the dynamics are a lot different, so I kind of miss some of that friendship group dynamics. But the adventures in this were so interesting. I really loved the folklore that was brought into it. I love our main character, Paola. She has a lot of things that like just make her seem like an authentic like tween. Like she's a great kid, and there's a lot of things I really love about her, but then also she's got a lot of things that she's creating drama and with the people in her life, like, you know, with her mom or her friends, but that's like normal kid behavior. So it doesn't feel like excessive drama. It feels like normal kid things where they don't want to talk it out, and then maybe they do talk it out and we see it kind of being like awkward and fumbling talking it out. Yeah, I just think this series is really great. I'm excited to like finish it off. I think it's just a trilogy and the third one's out. And yeah, there are also some creepy aspects to this. So if you have like a middle school in your life that likes a little bit of a spooky, but mixed with like folklore, myth type stuff, this would be perfect for them. The other 4-star book I read was Ghost by Jason Reynolds. And this is not one I was planning on reading originally because I'm not really a sports person. But then like several people kept recommending this, saying how great it was in this whole series. This is following like a track team, so it all revolves around like runners. And so I was like, oh, I'm not gonna like that. But I ended up really enjoying this one. I couldn't quite give it 5 stars because like there's still like so much of the sports aspect. But like in terms of writing and characters and like the dynamics between the characters, loved all of it. And it's short, so I would definitely recommend it even if you're not like a big sports person, because there's so much to get out of this, especially if you have like a, you know, like tween in your life, a middle schooler. This would be a great book for them. So we are following a boy who his name is, what is his name, Castle? Yeah, his real name is Castle, but he likes to be called Ghost. And one day he kind of comes across this track team and he's like, well, I can run better than them, and like just like is trying to like show off, and he just starts running next to one of the like track runners, and he turns out to be really good. So the coach tries to like get him to join the team and everything, and like Ghost is having a lot of trouble at home, at school, and all those issues, and like he is missing kind of having a mentor like through his parents, because his dad's not around and his mom is having to work extra hard because she's, you know, single parenting. And the coach in this, I just think, is amazing. The way he interacts with the kids, the way he is there for Ghost, the things he's teaching Ghost and the things that Ghost is learning about life. Yeah, It was just really high quality. I will definitely be continuing. Then moving on to my 5 stars, I had 3, and I really enjoyed all of these, and they're all different genres, so that's great. So first I had Finding Langston by Lisa Klein Ransom, and this one is a historical fiction. It's taking place during the Great Migration, so we are following Langston, who is moving from the south to the north. I can't remember now, where does he move to? Does he move to Chicago? So like, he's like dealing with, you know, all the trouble of moving and making new friends, and everybody kind of making fun of him because he's from like a small town in the south and now he's living in this big city, and he's struggling with like connecting to people at school. And he one day just ends up stumbling into the library, the public library, to kind of like escape some of the things that are going on at school, like some of the kids that are kind of bullying. And he's never been in a library before, because in the South, the libraries were segregated, or Black people were not allowed in the library where he was living. And so this is like a whole new world to him, to have like books that he can just check out for free. And, you know, he learns about a lot of different things in the library, and also he connects with Langston Hughes. So he is just searching the, like, you know, books of the library and sees his name, and he's like, well, what is this book? And it turns out to be poetry by Langston Hughes, and there is like clips of the poetry in here, and like how he connects to that poetry and how he feels seen in Langston Hughes poetry. And it was just beautiful and wonderful. It's so short, definitely recommend it. I want to continue the series. They're all 3 of them are novellas, so if you haven't picked this one up, definitely do it. It's excellent. The next 5-star is a contemporary book, which is not normal for me, because usually when I read middle grade, I tend towards like the fantasy and the like historical fiction, but this is a contemporary book, Waiting for Normal by Leslie Connor. And I picked this up because it fit one of the prompts for middle grade March. And I just really ended up absolutely loving this and loving the main character. This wasn't even on my radar, but like a subscriber had given me several different middle grade books, and so I had never heard of it until she gave it to me. And I was like, well, I'll try it for this middle grade March. And yeah, absolutely love it. Would recommend it. We're following a girl named Addie who her parents had divorced, and it was her mom and her stepdad had divorced, and she was living with her mom, and her like half sisters are living with the stepdad. And you know, there's financial trouble, so her and her mom end up moving to this like really small trailer, and it's kind of like in this industrial kind of area. And her like just adapting to new home situation of just living with her mom, missing her stepdad, missing her sisters, and then like she makes friends with the people that run the convenience store right next to her trailer, and you know, new school, all that stuff. And then also kind of like trying to navigate almost parenting yourself, because you know, she's not allowed to live with her stepdad since it's not her biological dad, and so her mom has custody. But her mom has some like mental health issues, and so her mom has a hard time really taking care of her properly, and so she ends up alone a lot and having to take care of herself. And like, so having these like adults, the community store she connects with, was really beautiful. And like seeing her navigate the world and just her positive attitude, I just like absolutely loved Addie, and I just wanted everything to go well for her. The whole book I'm just like, oh please, like she has this parent that loves her but that is not legally her guardian, and I was just like, I just want her to be happy. And yes, so I would highly recommend this. I absolutely loved Addie, our main character, and I love this book. And the last book that I want to talk about is my favorite book for the month, and that was Sisters of the Neversea by Cynthia Leitich Smith. And I buddy read this with Amy, which now I'm forgetting what Amy's channel's name is, so I will put it here and I'll link her down below. And she and I read this together, and we both absolutely loved it. I think this was one of her favorite books of the month as well. And she did a solo review, I think, of this one, book review. So when I link her, I'll link her book review down below. And yeah, this was amazing. This was a Peter Pan retelling, but by an Indigenous author. So amazing. Peter Pan is one of those ones where like I enjoy the Peter Pan story for its like whimsy and the fairies and like, you know, kind of portal fantasy and all that. But I think Peter is a really flawed character and a narcissist, and so it's hard to connect to Peter when he's the main character of the like original one. And so sometimes I don't like retellings, but this one was just perfect. It still had the whimsy, and I really enjoyed the way she did that, like the fantasy elements and the way she created Neverland and drew from the original but made it, you know, her own. And I love that we're not really like following Peter Pan. We're following these two girls, their sisters and their little brother, and you know, they're pulled to Neverland just like the Darlings in the original, and they're actually are called the Darlings in this. And they're sister dynamic because are they half sister? Yeah, I think, are they half sisters or stepsisters? I think they're stepsisters, and they're both half siblings with the brother. And just like their dynamics are great, and their parents are going through some issues, so it's like, are we still gonna be sisters if our parents get divorced? And like, so all of that's beautiful. And then also, like, I like that we're following them and we're seeing how they react to Peter Pan, and Peter Pan is totally like portrayed great. Like, we see his narcissistic you know, tendencies, how he kind of is like ruining things for people and the island, but then also his humanity as well. There was just so much to love about this one. Also, just the writing style, it was very much would break the fourth wall sometimes, and I love the way it did that. And yeah, I would just highly recommend this if you enjoy Peter Pan, or you just like a fantasy novel that also involves a sisterly relationship. Yeah, it was great and beautiful, and I loved it. And that's it. My husband and daughter are coming in right now. I can hear them pulling in, so I'm going to end this now. I hope you enjoyed Middle Grade March if you participated, and if you want to talk about any of these down below, I'd love to hear from you. Bye.